And I'm looking forward to 2025 because, PBC plays the long game when it comes to fights. We have Charlo versus Lamana that's coming up. What's your opinion about that fight for Charlo?
I can't wait to see both the Charlos back. The reality is they're good for the sport. They're big characters, they're exciting fighters. I think the sport is better when those guys are in it. And I understand both of them have their challenges. It would be a mistake to discount Jamal or Jermell. They both got a lot of mileage left in them. And they're going to be a tough task for whoever they're fighting. So I think, whether it's a tune-up here and there and get back, I think they're going to be in some really meaningful fights in the very near future.
And now you have, speaking about another fight, we just talked about Charlo. One person that he had like a little rivalry with, Caleb Plant now, who is, after seeing the loss that Edgar Berlanga took against Canelo, is that something that's really in the works behind the scenes?
Look, Caleb Plant's just a guy who, comes out and performs admirably every time out. He's come out on the short end a couple of times, but always fights hard, always entertains. One of the really good quality fighters, and I think there's lots of good fights. There's the two that you mentioned. He's got some business with Jamal Charlo, to finish as well. So I think Caleb is someone who's got a lot of mileage left in it as well, and I think there's some big fights left for him in the near future.
And speaking about Caleb Plant, he fought David Benavidez, who's going up to 175. But before I get to David Benavidez, has there any talks about maybe pushing Caleb Plant to maybe fight at 175, since we see guys like David Morrell up there?
Yeah, I've heard him say that he could do it at some point. It all depends on the matchup. I think there are guys at 168, and I think he could wait and see what happens with Benavidez Morrell, or he could take somebody at 168. He's got a lot of options.
Now we have talks of Benavidez versus David Morrell. Is that something that we can see early 2025 or in the middle of it?
Benavidez Morrell?
Yes.
We'll see that on February 1 on the top of a really stacked card. You've got the rematch of Figueroa Fulton on that card. You'll see Pitbull on that card. That's going to be one of the strongest cards in the first part of the year.
Okay, and now with you guys of course have good competition. You have Turkey Al Sheik, you have Top Rank, you have Golden Boy. Now with how do you guys stay competitive with let's say Turkey Al Sheik putting these fights together, and what do you guys approach compared to like Turkey Al Sheik, who's now trying to put all the top guys together?
Well, I think the reality is the sport is transitioning here in the U.S. You have two of the networks that have been the biggest supporters of the sport in Showtime and HBO have now gotten out of the sport. And so there'll be a time of transition as we figure out who's stepping in to take their place. And at the same time, Saudi's become very aggressive. The thing about Saudis is they're doing some really big cards. It's not enough to support the sport overall. You need small cards, you need mid-level cards, you need big cards, you need cards in the U.S., you need cards in the U.K., you need them spread outward geographically. So I think the reality is, and I think the February 22 card is a fantastic card, top to bottom. There's a lot of fighters left who don't have fights. So not everybody can sit around waiting for the Saudis to call them up and put them on a card. And I think it's really a responsibility of everybody here who's working in the sport to continue to try to figure out solutions to keep the sport healthy and active without relying on just one source of money.
And I'll ask you another question. I know it's not PBC, but what's your opinion about the first fight with Bivol versus Beterbiev and the rematch that's coming up?
Yeah, for me, look, it's a really close fight. For me, Bivol took the fight in first time. Worst it was a draw. I think I had 7-5, Bivol, but can't really complain either way because it was a tough competitive fight, a really high level fight. And look, I thought both guys fought about as well as I seen them fight. I don't know how much different another fight can make. I think it's going to be, those guys are going to fight 100 times, and every single time it will be a close decision.